Okay. Like I said, my name is Aaron Tarango. I'm a supervisor here at the grant programs at the district. And I'm here to talk to you about any questions you have today about grant programs and how they can be used to help you guys out there in the fields or the processors, and kind of talk about that and kind of go from there. So, I'll kind of go over it and answer any questions you guys might have in the end here. All right, how do we move this thing forward one here?
There you go.
There we go. There we go. All right, I just want to bring this up here. This is the definition of an ag operation. And why I kind of want to talk about this is that we also often get questions, am I eligible for it? Well, if you have any questions if you're eligible, here is the answer. For the most part, if you're on field ag, you're eligible. The other question we get is that, I'm a prep service. Well, if you're a prep service and you operate more than half the time on an ag field, doing water, doing whatever might have you're an ag operation. The next thing is processors. The first line processors, the hullers, those are eligible, but the second line processor is not. Let's say, for example, you hull it and then you ship it to somebody else for further processing, like canning or something like that. So our bagging, like the next person along the line is not eligible because they are now a second line processor and they're more of a manufacturer rather than ag at that point in time. And so therefore they're not eligible. So I want to bring that up and kind of talk about that as like who is eligible, who can do what. And this can be found on ARB's website. This is how ARB defined ag in their off-road regulation. So this is where this comes from, and this is what we use to define people who are eligible for our programs, because you must be ag to participate in our programs. So here is kind of roughly what we do, what we pay for. I kind of go over that just a tiny bit here about tractors. We fund everything that's self-propelled, which means the engine must propel the unit. And it says right here, anything, tier 0 to tier 2. A tier 2 is roughly about 2006 or older, is roughly qualifies for our program. So if you have a roughly 06 or older piece of equipment out there, if you're usually going to qualify for our program, we can go into a little deeper, look at what engine is actually in there, but that's kind of how it works. And you must purchase the latest and greatest technology. In most situations, it should be a tier 4 final engine that goes into that new unit, and we verify that during the process. And why we do that is because we want to pay for the biggest reductions we can. And a lot of times when we do these projects from a tier 0 to a tier 4 final, you can reduce as much as, let's say, over 10-year life of the project, you can reduce up to 15 to 20 tons of NOx emissions in that time period. So they get pretty significant, and you're reducing about 98% of the NOx or RPM from those projects as far as combustion goes. So it's really cost effective, and it's a way to really kind of go after emissions in the valley that are produced, and so that's kind of our goal. And it can include a lot of stuff in the harvest of nuts, the shuttle trucks, sweepers, shakers, harvesters, shredders, sprayers. If they're self-propelled, they all will qualify. And those would all go into the specialty equipment down there, which is specialty equipment, and then the horsepower, those are your payments. Our payments are based on the horsepower of the new unit, so you can kind of know what you're going to get. The caveat to that is that we don't pay above 25% above what the old unit was. So if the old unit was 100 horsepower and you're going to buy something 150, that means the payment will go to 125. You can get something bigger, but the payment will stop at 125, if that makes any sense. Because there has to be a cap. You can't, the goal of this whole thing was get like for like, and so that's why that's kind of there, basically. A couple of the programs we have going right now, alternatives open ag burning. We do help pay for that. If you have anything out there that you want to chip and incorporate or not incorporate the material in there, we can help pay for that. The program is open and going. Application on our website now. You can see the max payment for that, how much we pay per acre, so it's out there. I know it's been a big thing nowadays with burning and can't burn, so we do help offset some of that cost by paying for some of that. One thing I want to highlight is in 2019, we did a pilot program for low dust harvesters, which affects, I think, this group greatly. We run a kind of a pilot program to see how it works, to see, what was out there, how people kind of liked it, adhered to it. We ended up funding about $1.6 million for about 29 projects. Our incentive was half the cost, total cost, whether it be self-propelled or pull behind VTO equipment. and seems to be everybody pretty much liked it. And so what we did was we wrote a grant proposal to US EPA under the Targeted Airshed Grant Program. And we just found out this week we were actually awarded $10.3 million for that, which is great. So it will allow us to continue this program going forward. It might not be something for this harvest that we can get out that fast, because this harvest is kind of happening kind of now. But it's for subsequent harvests down the line in the next couple of years to fund those type of projects. And look for it. We'll begin to ramp the program up and kind of get some applications set up, get a website set up to accept these things. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Some of the questions we get too is, well, what's available? Well, there's only, I think, 4 units that qualify for the program right now, and those were done over kind of a joint venture between us. I think the Almond Board, NRCS helped pay for a study to see which ones would qualify. And the main ones, I think, Weiss McNair, Flory, Exact, and was it Jackrabbit, maybe the other one, I think. I think there's 4 of them. And then the Teneus unit as well was also a qualifier as a shaker, sweep roll, 1 unit. Yeah, Weiss McNair. But yeah, so Weiss McNair, Flory, Exact, Jackrabbit, and then the Teneus unit was also available. So there's 5 units that are available for the program. If you guys have questions about that, I can answer those at the end here. A couple other programs we have for farm operations out there. There's still ag, if you have ag pumps, they're tier 3 or newer, and you want to go to electric, or go from tier 3 to tier 4 final, we still have money to do that. It's still out there. Anything that's older than a tier 3 cannot be used at this time point in time on ag fields. So if you do have a tier 2 out there that's 07, 06 or older, so roughly, it must be taken out of service and be replaced with a tier 4 final at this point in time, without incentive dollars, because you cannot run that. So just as a heads up, that it must be a tier 3 or cleaner currently operating out in the field right now. The other one we have, I know this doesn't affect you guys, we also have a big program to replace the feeding of dairy cows, how they mix their feed. And we've seen tremendous reductions in this program. It's been pretty crazy. We're seeing that their fuel savings are more than in half what it was from the year before, the fuel they're saving here. So I think one dairy we found so far, when we actually up and going, they saved 39,000 gallons of diesel 1 year from this program by electrifying the way they mix their feed. So very cool program. Just a little highlight of some things we've done so far up to date in our program. We replaced over 7,500 tractors since 2009. 50,000 tons of emissions were reduced. We've obligated about 400 grand. The farmers have obligated about $460 million. The total project, what we've accomplished so far in the ag community replacing ag tractors, is about $870 million total since the beginning in 2009. So it's a pretty cool deal, and we're still going. The program's still open, still going. Money's still there, so we're still trying to get tractors replaced. We have some tight deadlines. The state of California, has some strict deadlines we want to hit before 2023 to avoid any regulations that they want to pose on us. So we're on target to achieve the tons we need to achieve. And so if you have tractors out there that are older than 06, please turn those in so we can help replace those and get the credits to use against any obligations you might have for regulation that ARB wants to craft for ag tractors. Here's my contact information. If you want to get a hold of me, one of my other specialists who works for me is Ryan Dalmanowski. He oversaw a lot of the low dust harvester program. So you can submit any questions to either one of us. If you have applications to submit for ag tractors right now, submit them to that grants@valia.org. Get right into the system quickly and get inspected. That's out there right now. So I know it's kind of quick. I know Ted has to talk after me, so it's going to be kind of fast. But I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have. It can be specific. You can email me. Specific question, you can call me, whatever you guys feel comfortable doing. But if you guys have any questions about any of that stuff, you can go ahead and ask that now.
Yeah, if any questions come up after Ted's talk as well, just keep those in mind. Incentives are amazing, how much they can help you get up to date with equipment and try new technologies. So I really encourage everyone to take advantage of these incentives. This is a great program. So with that, Ashley, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
We have a couple. So the first question is, can you go into the low dust incentive a little more?
Okay, well, like I said, we haven't opened it up yet. We ran the pilot to learn some stuff. So it'll be going forward in this fall. Like I said, it's probably not going to meet this year's harvest as we get the thing up and going, but it's going to be a multi-year program with that amount of money. So it'll probably get up and going as we get agreements in place with USEPA, as we get things set up, as we get kind of going. That it'll open up. It'll be to anybody in the valley. Exactly how it's going to work, I'm not sure yet. Might be just over the counter, first come, first serve. We'll see how it goes. I don't have the exact details on that yet. We'd like to run things that way because it kind of runs smooth. The goal is basically the payment will be half the cost, period. Whatever the total cost is, that's what the grant will pay. Whether it be self-propelled or whether it be pull behind, it'll be half the cost. And there'll be a list of eligible pieces of equipment you can purchase with that program. Like I said, there's 5 eligible pieces of equipment you could use at this point in time: the Weiss McNair, the Flory, the Exact, and the Jackrabbit, and the Teneus unit. So there's 5 out there that are currently eligible for the program. As far as low dust harvesters go, so I mean that's kind of what's going to happen with it. There's not too much more I can say beyond that. That it's pretty cool to get this grant. Like I say, we just have to work through the nuances of it as we work through the details of the EPA to actually physically launch it. But that means it's probably going to be set up for next harvest, not probably this harvest. So, is there any more details that they wanted on that, though? I mean, I don't know specifics I can answer for you this time.
Yeah, there was another one that he added on to that. Do you have to turn in a piece of old equipment, or is it just to buy a new one?
No, you're going to have to crush your old one. We're going to physically watch it get crushed. So yes, you do have, it's a replacement program, so the old one will have to go away. Perfect. You can't just add it to your current fleet. Something will have to go away.
Okay, thank you. And we do have one more, and it said, would the San Joaquin Valley Air District consider other activities to fund? An example of soil health improvement, nutrient management to reduce NO2 emissions.
So like soil amendment type stuff, is that what they're asking?
I would say yes from this question.
At this point in time, probably not, because a lot of the money we have that comes in, you have to quantify it with proven ways to quantify the reductions, we'll say, and we have to report back to those reductions we achieved. So it's very hard to quantify that. So at this point in time, probably not. I'm not gonna say it's off the table, but at this point in time, we are more after the combustion of stuff as far as that's concerned. Maybe a ways down the road, something like that, but we're still going for low-hanging fruit, which is the combustion part of everything right now.
Perfect.
And we will send a follow-up email to everybody that registered for today, and we'll get everyone's contact information, links to their websites and everything, and include in that email. So I know sometimes it's hard to write this stuff down during a webinar, so we'll do a follow-up email with detail on all our talks. So,
and we have 2 more questions. So, will the SJVAD fund cover crop establishment for dust reduction?
Cover crop? No, not at this time.
Okay, and then we have one more. It says, when will the zero emission ag UTV voucher program fund again?
We're working on it right now. There's a lot of projects that are just sitting there that we didn't get funded. So if the applications are in house, those will be after first. I don't think it's going to open back up because there's so many in a backlog at this point in time. But we're waiting for more funding to come in for that program to get it going again. But there's such a backlog that I don't think it'll reopen. It'll just fund what we have in house if we do get that thing going again.
Perfect. Thank you, Aaron. At this time, there are no more questions.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. So we're gonna move on with Ted Strauss from the NRCS, and Ted, you can request control or you can share your screen, whichever. I'll go ahead and allow it here. 1 second, get my mouse over there where I can see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
and there you go. You now have control, Ted. So welcome.
Okay. Right now I see my cover screen, but I don't have control on it.
There you go.
Oh, there it goes. Whoops.
All right.
Okay. Okay, well, welcome everyone. My name is Ted Strauss. I am the Air Quality Resource Conservationist for California. And so I oversee a lot of projects throughout the state, but 90% of my time is within the San Joaquin Valley for obvious reasons. I am in Fresno. Fresno is sort of ground zero for agricultural air quality in the nation. And so that's why I am here in this part of the woods. I do work closely with Aaron, and so I try really hard to collaborate our programs with the San Joaquin Valley Air District. One thing I don't want to do is have a lot of discrepancies and a lot of differences, and we even share a lot of the same methodologies for ensuring that our emission reductions are equivalent, that we can compare apples with apples. So it's a good relationship, and I hope we continue with that. In the meantime, let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. I guess there's a little delay on my end.
Yes.
Some of you may have seen this. This is a flyer that was released pretty recently. I know the Almond Board released this through one of their newsletters. In fact, I downloaded this from the Almond Board's website. But it was a request from the Almond Board to sort of give a brief to its members that there are opportunities out there for conservation. And it's not just air quality, it's really a lot of different things. Even though I only represent a small segment of what NRCS does, I think there was a question earlier about cover crops. Cover crops is something that we do under conservation planning, and very often we do have funds available to assist with those costs. So if you don't have that, you can always contact this flyer. If you don't have this flyer, you can always contact the Almond Board and get it. So basically, if some of you have never dealt with NRCS before, our primary goal or our primary role is conservation planning. Our field offices have technicians who can provide assistance. It is totally voluntary. We're not a regulatory agency. It's always at the client's invitation. Everything we do is confidential. There's even language in the Farm Bill about information that's turned to us that we have to maintain a certain level of confidentiality for that. And the best of all, it's provided at no charge. We don't charge a fee for the services that we provide. Conservation helps identify the resource concerns, and that's probably the biggest thing, is that if there's a resource concern out there, we may have a conservation practice that can address that resource concern. And we go under the umbrella of what's called SWAPA+HE, which it's an acronym, and it actually means soil, water, air, plants, animals, and then the human element, and of course energy at the end. Just point out the first A in SWAPA is air quality. And of course, through conservation planning, we may have financial assistance available to help implement those conservation practices so that we can either improve the resource concerns or even maintain some of the things that are going on your farm at this point. Oops. These are the air quality resource concerns. We look at particulate matter, ozone, precursors, and those first two are really tied closely with the Clean Air Act. Looking at primarily non-attainment areas, what the national ambient air quality standards are for a region. And of course, a lot of our projects are even tied with some of the state and federal commitments for, and even local commitments for reducing air pollution in non-attainment areas. Objectionable odors is, of course, dairies seem to always fit into this, especially if they're near urban areas, and there are manure management practices that can help reduce odors, but they can also help reduce emissions of greenhouse gases. Of course, greenhouse gases is a big issue in California these days. Of course, with the California Air Resources Board and their goals and objectives and even regulations, there's a lot going on these days with greenhouse gases, and it's really interesting what is coming up these days with that. And then a new resource concern that was just added last year is what we call airborne reactive nitrogen. And a lot of that deals with oxides of nitrogen and also with ammonia. This was brought in primarily due to nitrogen deposition that occurs in Class 1 areas. One great example is the Rocky Mountain National Park area, where they're experiencing quite a bit of nitrogen deposition, both from smog-forming pollutants from the Denver area and Fort Collins and those areas, but also ammonia from a lot of the agricultural activities that go on in northeastern Colorado. Okay, I know everybody always wants to talk about money, and NRCS does have basically two programs that address the resource concerns. EQIP is the most popular, especially when it comes to air quality. Really the way EQIP works is that when we go do conservation planning, we do assessment of the site, and then we identify those resource concerns, and then what EQIP does is that it helps fund those practices to improve those conditions so that it's no longer a resource concern. The other program we have is called Conservation Stewardship, and it's kind of goes above and beyond EQIP. You may have even had an EQIP contract at one time with us, but you want to continue that operation, even though you've met the resource concern, you want to continue doing that activity and be good stewards to the land, and we can help provide funding assistance for that. There's what we call enhancements. Enhancements usually go either maintain or go above and beyond what a conservation standard might require. For example, we have one that's for what we call our field operations emissions reductions, which has a stipulation in there that you need to provide 20% in additional emission reductions for those activities above what the standard requires. The standard looks at 30%, so you're looking at cutting emissions in half to qualify for CSP. That's just one example. There are others. CSP is really, I think, really good for a lot of cropland activities, but really when it comes to air quality, there are not a lot of enhancements there. And I'm working on that to see if maybe we can get more enhancements for that program. Today, though, I am going to talk about EQIP, and I know when I talked to Jesse about what he wanted to see, he really wanted me to share what our payments are for certain practices. And like Aaron talked earlier, with the tractor replacement program, we also have a similar program with the same goal of meeting a state commitment of trying to get emission reductions by the end of 2023. But regardless of that, we do offer replacements. I think there was a question as to whether or not the old equipment has to be turned in. Similar to the Air Districts program, the answer is yes. That's the only way we can assure that the emission reductions are real and permanent. But these are our payment scenarios that we offered this year, from 25 to 160 horsepower, basically $325.61 a horsepower, and anything over that was $507 $1,000.17 per horsepower. So if you figure that you have a 100 horsepower tractor, the payment's going to be, a little over $32,000. If it's a 200 horsepower tractor, it'll be about $114,000. So that might give you an idea of what our payments might be. Now, the payments are the same regardless of the type of off-road farm equipment that's operated. So whether it's a tractor, a loader, any other type of self-propelled equipment, the payment is the same. We also do repowers of irrigation pump engines. Aaron kind of alluded earlier that that the tier 1s and 2s are to going to diesel are just not there anymore. But we can still do that if you go to an electric motor. One thing we will not do are tier 0s. Tier 0s were supposed to be changed out back in 2010, and 10 years since that prohibition came in. But so we won't consider tier 0. But if it's a tier 1 or tier 2, we have funding available to make that go to electric. If you're going to install a new diesel engine, then the in-use engine has to be a tier 3. We also have funding available for treating unpaved roads. These are the 3 payment scenarios that we have that we offer here in the Valley. Lignin derivatives, road oils, and polymer emulsions. Road oils have been really popular over the years, and it's still popular. I still see a lot of it laid down. This photograph, I know it's not an almond orchard, it's a stone fruit orchard, but what a lot of growers seem to be doing is they're laying chipped asphalt on their unpaved surfaces and using road oil to kind of seal it. And I'm seeing that more and more. But our payment is for the road oil itself. It's not for any type of base material that might be put on there. It also doesn't cover the cost of grading if that's necessary, or any additional measures that are needed to maintain that road. So we don't have a lot of requests for the lignin derivatives, but the polymer emulsions seem to be becoming more popular these days, especially like in the wine country, like around Paso Robles area and so forth. They seem to really like the polymer emulsions, and so we're seeing more projects with that. Low dust harvesters. This has been a really popular program for the last few years. We started this back in 2016. We don't pay for the equipment, we pay for the use. And so our practice 376, which is there in parentheses, is what we apply to this. And it is a management practice. It only has a 1-year life. And so very often what producers will do is they'll enter into a 3-year contract with us. 3 years is the maximum we can fund under an EQIP contract. And we do pay by the acre for the use of that. Now, many producers do rely on jobbers, and many of those producers are typically small acre farmers. And so this program works really well for them. Some producers have actually used the funds that they've received from us and use that to purchase their own equipment, and that's great. I mean, that really helps with the permanence of the emission reductions. But if someone comes to us with with a proposal and they say they already own the equipment and they're already using this equipment, then it would not be eligible because they're already meeting the resource concern. So there's kind of a timing issue. If just kind of a hint, if you don't own the equipment now, then you are likely a very good candidate for this program. But if you already own the equipment, you're already using it, then you will not likely qualify for the funds on this program. Now there's maybe an opportunity under CSP. That's something that you would have to talk with your service center representative about. Below is a table of those low dust harvesters that we recognize. These are ones that have tested their emission reductions or are have demonstrated equivalence to those equipment that's been tested. But these are the units right now that we do recognize that will work into our program. Orchard chipping. We've been funding orchard chipping for many years. Actually, it goes back to around 2006 or 2007, something like that. We originally had a payment of 200. Well, we had this payment scenario where this year we offered $238.36. This was really the bulk of the funding scenarios that we applied, because most of the chips went to a biomass power plant. And, we're seeing that much fewer now, because there's only a handful of power plants that are still running in the valley, or even in the state for that matter. And so we have a separate payment scenario of $767 per acre. And that would be for all other scenarios. So if, for example, you were to use those chips for animal bedding or mulching on another orchard, or even whole orchard recycling, that is the payment that you would receive for chipping that material. We added one last year on air curtain burner. So far, we haven't. We haven't had any takers for this one. Even in forestry applications, we haven't had any funding requests for air curtain burners, but I put that there just to let you know that option is there. And one thing about air curtain burners too is that that even though this practice is intended to be an avoidance of open burning, air curtain burners is still burning, and just under a very controlled situation. And they do require permits from the air district. I don't know if Aaron's hearing this, but there are certain constraints. So, you want to make sure that if you rely on a jobber for an air curtain burner, that they do have that equipment permitted. Precision pest control application is another practice we've had in quite a while. This was really to address some of the early Department of Pesticide regulation goals of trying to get a 20% reduction in volatile organic compounds. And that's where all this started. And so we recognize right now for this payment rate, those that have photo ID or sonar sensor technologies. But more importantly, the practice itself, the 595 practice, sees this equipment more as pesticide mitigation and not as much for VOC control. And so because of this practice, it does have to be tied with a integrated pest management plan for a single target pest. And these are our payment rates. If you're a small farm, less than 10 acres, it's just a single payment of $669.30. And if you're an orchard of greater than 10 acres, it's almost $72 an acre. Okay, application deadlines. Well, for this fiscal year, we've already passed. But that shouldn't discourage anyone from applying. We do accept applications year round. And whatever applications we receive, they will be considered for whatever batching cycle that comes up next. Fiscal 2021 for us, for the federal government, doesn't start till October 1st. And so we don't know yet when the next batching cycles will be. But if you do submit an application now, it will be considered for any future batching periods that may come up. Where to apply? Basically, you need to visit our local USDA service center. If you've never gone through any type of Farm Services Agency eligibility, you can do it there. Of course, our NRCS staffers are always willing to help. Of course, with the COVID-19 situation we have, it may be a little bit more of a constraint to meet individually with our planners, but you can always call them, and they're always more than willing to help. And so, boy, I don't know what happened to that slide, but anyway, that's the end of my presentation, and I am available for questions.
As people type in questions, Ted, I have a couple because I'm curious. And the first one I know will come up from somebody because growers are very creative when they think of incentives. So on the low dust funds, you said that was for the practice. So if you don't have equipment currently, can you combine funds for the from NRCS to do the practice with funds from, say, South San Joaquin or the San Joaquin to make the purchase?
The program that San Joaquin Valley has is a separate funding opportunity. It's not tied with NRCS programs. The district's program is also for the replacement of the equipment. Ours is for the use of the equipment. So if a producer doesn't have equipment right now, they can get a contract with us for using the equipment. But if they decide later on to purchase it and they wish to work with the air district on that, then they really need to talk to their district folks. Whatever comes up though, they need to explain that they do have a contract with us for the use of the equipment. But yeah, they would have to ask that question to the district.
So there's
I can't answer that question.
There's a possibility there that
there's always a possibility.
Yeah. And then a question on the biomass chipping incentive. Well, really more of a comment. It seems like the funds for that would really go a long way and help deferring the cost of doing a whole orchard recycling program. It seems like that'd be a great program for that.
Yeah, the payment is really for the chipping, and
right.
And like I said, the farmer can decide what to do with the chips after that. Right now, we don't offer a separate payment for whole orchard recycling. Just let you know that, in fact, our practice standards don't even address incorporation of any type of biomass material. The closest is our mulching standard, and that doesn't deal with incorporation. It deals with topical application of mulch. And so we are actually working on what we call an interim standard, where it will be including the whole orchard recycling concept. And we hope to have that out hopefully next year in fiscal 2021. So stand by for that. But in the meantime, we do offer the payment for chipping, and the producers can decide what to do with those chips at that time.
Excellent. Ashley, were there questions on your side?
Yes, there are. There are a couple so far. The first question, when do you need to apply for the whole orchard chipping? And can you also get money from the air district?
Typically, the air district, and here again, maybe Aaron would be better at answering that question, but what I've seen from air district programs is they will not co-fund with USDA programs. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay, and then are there any precision pest control weed sprayers available?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Are there any precision pest control weed sprayers available? I'm assuming for funding.
Yeah, I think there are. There, as long as they have the sonar or the visual eye technology on it. I do recall that there was one that did that, and it would scan the surface, and if it saw a weed, it would actually target that weed and apply the pesticide to it. So I do seem to recall that there is technology out there for that.
And how would they find the precision pest control sprayers that are available for funding?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. They would have to work with a local dealer for that, or with their jobber. It's here again. It's very similar to the Lotus harvester. The funds are paying for the use of the equipment and not to purchase the equipment. And so if a lot of producers rely on jobbers to do their spraying, And if they do enter into a contract, they would need to make sure that the jobbers have that equipment. If the producer, yeah, and I think that if I'm sorry, it may sound a little scatterbrained because I'm trying to think of the best answer, but I believe that the ones that we've contracted with, they were all with jobbers. And I believe that the producers that participate in it, because like the low dust harvesters, very often they would enter into a 3-year contract with us. And if they really liked it, they would end up buying their own equipment.
Okay, and it looks like some of the other participants have been chiming in to kind of give them some guidance on different brands that might meet the requirement.
As far as the sprayers go,
yeah, it looks like
Smart Sprayer is one of the biggest brands out there that we've contracted with, but there are others, and I'm sorry, I don't know the names of the other products out there.